Wait, is this Africa? No way, this can't be Africa. Yes, believe it or not, but this is the beautiful, diverse continent of Africa. And believe it or not, but Africa is the future. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. It's your girl Valentina, nicknamed the African Dominican. I am a proud African with roots in Angola and Namibia. I was raised in the diaspora in England and the USA. With that said, welcome to my channel. Thanks for your love and support. I really appreciate it. In this modern day of advanced technology and social media, why do people still have a hard time believing that Africa is not the poverty-filled jungle full of poor black people and big belly kids with flies? As an African who is also an American citizen, it boggles my mind how low people still think of Africa and how people of African heritage living outside Africa are ashamed to be associated with Africa. Where will this ignorance and hate for Africa stop? Well, believe it or not, but this is Africa. And believe it or not, but all eyes are now on Africa as the next frontier for growth. Leading analysts have said that Africa is attracting huge interest among global leaders who view it as a future global market due to its growing population and vast natural resources. So yes, believe it or not, but the future is African and Africa is the future. Thanks to social media, Afrobeat music, and movies like Wakanda Forever, people from all races and walks of life are now finally realizing that Africa is cool, that the people of Africa are wonderful, and that the African culture is rich and diverse. Africa is finally being appreciated, embraced, and recognized for her rightful place in this world as the motherland of all people. It really warms my heart to see non-Africans listening to and dancing to African music, aka Afrobeat music. Also seeing them wearing dashikis and other African attires. It really just warms my heart. And also seeing Black Americans returning to their first home, Africa, to visit, to invest, and also to live for good. Black Americans, being the richest black people in the world, might be the key to developing Africa faster if they take up that mantle. I also like seeing more and more people of African heritage showing their pride in their African roots, especially people from the Dominican Republic who have been more whitewashed than all other people of African heritage. So seeing them embrace the African roots really warms my heart and gives me hope. And of course, France using Africa's talent to win World Cups and advance to the highest level of the world's biggest tournament, the FIFA World Cup. If it wasn't for France, black people wouldn't be prominently seen in the World Cup. Thank you, France. Thank you for putting Africans on the world stage. Now, if only France can stop quote-unquote enslaving and colonizing black people through their colonial tax that they charge to Haiti and other French colonized African countries, aka Francophones, if they can stop charging them that colonial tax, yeah, that could be a game changer as well. But in the meantime, we just thank France for at least using black people to get on the world stage. When people are watching that television from all over the world, they see Africans doing big things. That also warms up my heart. Moving on, Africa has always been the future. It's the cradle of humanity, a continent where all people originated from. Unfortunately, that future was disrupted for the West when greedy, evil people saw that Africa was the richest continent with strong human power and natural resources, which they used to build the Western world and left Africa in shambles. If you are not aware of how Mother Africa was violated, research the scramble for Africa when Western countries divided African countries amongst themselves and brutally colonized these countries. Research the slave trade where strong, able-bodied Africans were ripped from the continent to go and build the Western world. Also research how colonialism and mental slavery convinced Africans and people of African heritage that black was bad, that Africa was a poor continent, dark and poverty-stricken, and that they should be ashamed to be associated with it. Who named Africa the dark continent? Who made Africa poor? Who influenced African leaders to mismanage and root their own countries? Who are the powers that be that have been holding Africa back for centuries? Africa is not a poor, dark, poverty-stricken continent. Africa is the richest continent and has always been. Africa is just abused, violated, and mismanaged. That's all. But I believe Africa is rising to take her rightful place once again in this world. So do not sleep on Africa. Do not give up on Africa. Do not be ashamed for Africa, because Africa is the future. Several recent studies project that by the end of this century, Africa will be the only continent experiencing population growth. By 2030, 1 in 5 people will be African. Let that sink in. Projections also show that by 2050, Africa's population will double. By 2100, 1 in 3 people on Earth will be African. This means that by the end of the century, Africa will account for more than half, which is 54% of the 2.4 billion global population growth in coming decades. That's huge. And also, 13 of the world's 20 biggest urban areas will be in Africa. As the world's youngest continent, Africa, with a median age of 20 years old and 60% of the population under the age of 25, this growing population of mainly young people is making Africa very attractive. The African youth boom has the potential to propel Africa to new levels of economic and geopolitical power. Countries like China can see this, and therefore they have been moving quickly to invest in Africa's future. I just hope that the Chinese investments don't end up being a new form of colonialism for Africa. I hope the current African leaders don't sell Africa to selfishly enrich themselves while the people of Africa continue to suffer. I hope that China doesn't take advantage of Africa like the others have done in the past. At a recent US-Africa summit held in Washington, D.C., the United States, which feels outdone by China, invited African leaders to Washington, D.C. to renew their ties with Africa. Russia has also renewed its ties with Africa. In fact, Europe is relying on Africa right now to provide energy for them, or Europe will turn into a dark continent, literally. Hopefully, the new interest in Africa is not going to be the second scramble for Africa by the powers that be. I hope Africans and African leaders are wiser this time, having learned from past mistakes, hopefully, and having grown a backbone and not let the powers that be use them to run Africa down the drain. In all honesty, I am more concerned about Black African leaders' ability to defend Africa against any forms of new invasion, because they have failed to protect Africa in the past. But I really hope that this time, Black, white, Indian, and Arab Africans will unite and work together as a team to defend their Africa and help Africa take her rightful place in this world. Nonetheless, I believe it's up to the youth of Africa and the friends of Africa from all over the world, including people of African heritage in the diaspora, to take a stand for justice and righteousness against the powers that be when it comes to the people and the continent of Africa, and say enough is enough. It is time for Africa. Speaking of the African youth, I have to give it up to these young men. Every time I go to Africa, Namibia, I always have issues with customer service. But for the first time ever, I didn't have any customer service complaints. Customer service has definitely improved in Namibia. Alright guys, that's the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found it helpful. And of course, don't forget to leave your comment below, like and share, alright? And thank you so much for your love and support. And of course, to all my people of African heritage, please let's embrace our Africanness. Africa is beautiful. You are beautiful. To my non-African heritage people, you are loved. You are welcome to anytime. And of course, I love you guys. Thank you for support and God bless.